Welcome to Skill Session. Today we're going to talk about sessions and cookies and how to work with permanent storage, memory storage, clients and servers, all that stuff. So get ready for it. We're doing today's video a little bit differently than normal in order to hopefully make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more educational, and ultimately more memorable. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the concepts first. Now I brought some post-it notes in here. Blue post-it notes are going to be database data. Yellow post-it notes are going to be cookie data. And green post-it notes are going to be session data. We need a website and we need someone to visit that website. This is Mr. Website. And this is someone visiting that website. Now remember, when we visit a website, we generally call the website and just get a response. So that means we are aware of the website existing, but the website is not really aware of us. It doesn't care if we just walk away again. Doesn't matter. It's just there to reply to whatever questions it's being asked. Keep that in mind as we walk through this. So now I'm walking up to this website and I'm saying, hey, could you sell me some hay? And it's gonna say, let me start a session. So that means I'm gonna put something up here in my memory. I'm gonna say 219. That's gonna be the session. All the sessions live up here in the head of the dinosaur. So it's saying, hey, 419, can I give you a cookie? Yeah, sure, okay. I'm gonna give you a cookie here that says that you have session ID 419. So whenever you call me, just tell me that. Okay, hi Mr. Webpage, I'm 419. Can I buy some hay? And now it says, maybe you want to log in? Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna log in. Here's my username and my password. We have a database on the website. Inside that database, drag out the username and the password, and we'll say, okay, this looks accurate. We'll put this back into the database, and we'll say, okay, so 419, we'll add something to the existing session here and say 419 is now logged in. In the database, it's actually the user ID 16. So that's who we're talking about in case we need something else down the road. And their name is Miss Piggy. So now I know a little bit something about you. And you asked me about hay, by the way. So do you mind grabbing hold of another cookie for me? And by the way, would you be interested in buying some bacon? No. I don't particularly like bacon. Okay, well, here's another cookie, by the way. Could you hold on to that for me? Okay, so next time I'm calling you, I'm gonna say, so I'm 419, I want some hay, and I don't like bacon. Okay, that's great. 419, I know that you're already logged in. I know that you're user number 16. I know your name is Miss Piggy. And here's the information that you asked for. Now, Miss Piggy's getting a little bit tired of all this, so they figure, let me go someplace else and figure this out. So they find another website. And when they move on to that website, well, there's one thing in here called session, and that's secret. So we're not gonna grab that along. So I'm just gonna go over here with my public cookies and say, hi, I like hay, I don't like bacon. Do you have anything for me? And then that's gonna start up another session and say, it's gonna be session 218. So you get a different session with this website than you had with the one over here. So there'll be different stuff in the memory here than there was over here. But some of the information stored on your computer can be accessed. Now you can obviously always just say, you know what, just delete all of my cookies. I'm gonna start over, and that's fine, but that also means that all the sessions that you have with the different systems are gonna go away. So whenever you visit a new website, you're gonna go back in and say, hi, and then it's gonna say, oh, you need an ID, and it'll give you a new ID, but just to keep things a little bit brief, we'll log back in, we'll say, oh, you have a new session, the new session just magically happens to have the same ID as the last one. Once again, you're 419, and you have this cookie here, and we have all this stuff here about you still. As if this stuff never happened. This guy was never here now. Now, the next thing that I want to happen here is, this is a nice piggy and all, but it's not the only user, and that's the point of a session, right? We have 419, and he's right here, but now another user visits. Hi there, can I give you a cookie? Yeah, of course. Okay. I'm gonna call you 218. Now we have a couple of sessions here in our memory. And now the sheep knows, oh, I'm 218. That's great. So whenever I ask you something, I'll just let you know I'm 218. And let's just go right ahead and log in the sheep as well. So you're logged in, you have the real user ID 14 and your name is Dolly, obviously, your sheep. That's all great. Whenever you're asking me something, I can keep going with the conversation because even if I'm talking to 1,000 people, I gave them a number each. So I don't care what your name is. I just want to know what is the ID that I gave you. That's the only one thing that I need to know in order to keep track of the things that I stored in my session. But I need you to tell me the number of the session every time. So that's all great, but there is a downfall. Here comes the tiger along, right? And tigers, they're evil. So this tiger, it does a little bit of hacking, a little bit of cross-site scripting, and it gets away with actually stealing this cookie. So now the tiger has this cookie, and that means that it can walk right up to the dinosaur and say, "Hey dinosaur, my name is 419. How you doing?" "Hi, 419. I can see that you're already logged in, that your user ID is 16, and that your name is Miss Piggy. Could I interest you in some hay?" And I can say, "Oh, actually, I want to change my name. Maybe I want to change my name to something else. Maybe I just want to send a message out to the sheep over here saying, hey, you want to come and play?" Because the sheep's going to think that it's the pig. Because right now the conversation's going on and the website thinks that the tiger is the pig. That's the security issue that comes along with all of this. In order to sum all of this up, we have a couple of different types of memory. We have permanent storage that we store either in the database or on a file system. Then we have temporary storage or memory. That's going to be the session for the server. We also have that on the user side, and that's going to be cookies. But the only way that we can identify what session a user belongs to is by putting their session ID into a cookie. But that's the only thing, because generally you can look at it this way. You want to store something permanently, put it in the database. You want to store something for the duration of the conversation, the server is going to store it in the session. And the only part of the session that is going to put out into a cookie is the session ID, just so we know who we're talking to. Then all of the things that you might want to remember about them, but that you don't really care to have in your database, you can say, oh, you speak Danish? That's fine, here's a cookie. So next time that you ask me something, just tell me that you speak Danish. If it's something that makes sense to have on the client side, then you put it in a cookie. And third-party cookies is a cookie that's set up to be shared with other websites. So maybe it's a good idea to have a third-party cookie that sets the language, because then you don't have to tell every single website that you speak Danish. They just know it's a third-party cookie, so you can just tell everyone about that. There's also one that says that you really like hay and that you don't like bacon, and while one of them might be useful, the other one might be intrusive. So now that we have the concepts down, let's try and look at some code. I have something here that's a little bit complex, but let's just divide it into a couple of different things. All we're doing here is we're starting a session if there isn't one, because if there is one, we want to continue with that session. And then we're looking at 4 different cases here. First of all, if we're trying to log out, we unset the session, we try to forget everything that we have in our memory about this user. So we get that from the logout button that comes later on. If we're not trying to log out, then maybe we're already logged in. If we are already logged in, we want to say hi and then the name of the user, just so we can see on the screen who it is that we're logged in as, right? If we're not already logged in, we're not trying to log out, then maybe we're actually trying to log in. This is a little bit longer because we have to connect to the database and check if the username and password exists in the database. And this is very, very, very insecure. Please don't copy this for a login system. It's terrible. But it does check if there is a user with the username and password provided by the login form. And if there is that, then we do a couple of things. First of all, we set up the session to say, well, this person is now logged in. And we set the username into the session, the username that we get from the database. So now we can remember that name, so we can post it as shown a little bit earlier. The next thing we do then is that we say, if the user is Dolly, the sheep, then we set a couple of cookies here. They like hay and they dislike wolves. If the user is Miss Piggy, then they like dirt and they dislike bacon. And no matter if they log in successfully and get all this stuff, we just insert a header here to the beginning of this page, really, where it should then stop at the second point saying, if you are logged in, then hello and your name. Or the fourth and last thing that it's going to do is, if you're not trying to log out, if you're not already logged in, if you're not trying to log in, then you need a login form so you have a way to actually log in. So that means if we haven't done anything and we visit this page, then this is what we get. We can write some gibberish in here, enter, and we'll just get the form again because we're redirected to the same page without being logged in. But we have the database back here, once again, super insecure, but we have usernames and we have passwords and we have the user IDs. We want to log in as Dolly, who has the password mom, Dolly, mom. And it says, hi Dolly. We can say log out to forget the session. Dolly, Mom, submit. And let's take a look up here. We have our cookies down here. There's actually 3 of them because the session ID is always kept here in its own cookie. But there's another couple of cookies here. We set one called dislike and we set one called like. So we know that Dolly likes hay and we know that they dislike wolves. Let's make this one a little bit smaller and then take an incognito window, because in that way we can visit the same page twice. Localhost :8080/dino.php. Let's take a look. We had another user, Miss Piggy 123. So let's say Ms. Piggy 123. And now it says hi Miss Piggy. And if I'm over here, I can say done and I can hit refresh. And it'll remember that I'm Miss Piggy over here and that I'm Dolly over here. If we take a look up here, we can see that the cookies are a little bit different over here. Here we dislike bacon and we like dirt. But what if we try and log out? What's gonna happen then? Well, if we log out, then the system forgets who we are because it forgets the session, but our cookies are still here. So we still remember certain things. And these cookies could be available from other domains as well. But that's not all. We did talk a little bit about, and I'll go further into this in my cross-site scripting video. But if I go into Postman and say localhost :8080/dino.php, then I get my form here to log in with a username and a password. But what I can do here is that over here, we logged in as Miss Piggy 123. I go into my cookies, I find my session ID, I can copy this. I can click on my cookies here to see the cookies that I have. I can click on this one and I can change it. I can insert the session ID that I just copied from Miss Piggy over here. Hit save and close this down. And if I send the same request now, it says hi Dolly and I'll hit send and it'll say hi Miss Piggy. And I never knew the username or the password. I just stole the session ID. That's a whole thing in and of itself, and we'll get back into that in our cross-site scripting video. There's one last thing that I want to show you, and that is how to print out the content of a cookie. We could actually take this and say, no matter what we're doing, we'll want to echo what the user likes, right? Give it a line break. Right now, we like hay. So that's how you access a cookie from PHP. So now we know how to set cookies and how to read them again. And that's gonna be all for this skill session. See you in the next one.